I'm Kaylin. When my father passed away, I asked for just 3 days to lay him to rest. That's when my sister-in-law, also my boss, looked me in the eye and said, "Choose, work or family." That moment made one thing clear: I didn't truly belong to either. But they didn't know I walked away with something they had overlooked, something worth $39 million. And by the time they noticed it was gone, it was too late. Let me ask you, have you ever been forced to choose between your job and your family? What would you have done? I had come straight from hospice, the sterile scent still clinging to my coat. In my hand, a sealed white envelope, the only copy of the eulogy I wrote for Dad at 3 a.m. while he fought for each breath. It felt too personal to scan. I held it like it was sacred as I entered Wilder Technologies headquarters. Inside the glass-walled conference room sat Vera, my sister-in-law, my boss, and lately, the self-appointed keeper of our family's legacy. She was mid-presentation, flanked by junior execs. She saw me, raised one polished finger, and made me wait. When she finally gestured me in, she didn't pause her revenue slides. "We're on deadline, Kaylin. Make it quick." "I need 3 days," I said quietly. "Dad passed this morning. I need time to arrange the funeral." She didn't even blink. "You're either committed to this acquisition or you're not. Family can wait. The market won't." She said family like it was a weekend hobby. I laid the envelope on the table, hoping its weight would remind her that Dad had been her mentor, too. She flicked it dismissively off the table with her nail. "Then you've made your choice." I didn't cry. I picked up the envelope, brushed it off, and left, grieving, yes, but also burning with something I couldn't name yet. 2 days later, I gave Dad's eulogy in a nearly empty chapel. No one from the company came. Not even my brother Dean. Too busy finalizing Vera's deal, apparently. I ended the eulogy with the words Dad had once told me: "Silence can be generous. But never let it be mistaken for permission." After the service, I overheard a board member's wife say, "Vera says Kaylin's stepping down. Maybe it's for the best." Like I was outdated wallpaper. That night at my childhood home, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. It was Walter Finch, my father's longtime attorney. He said Dad had left me something, privately, away from the board. "Your father didn't leave everything to them." The next morning, I drove to a dusty storage unit. Inside, I found an old briefcase labeled Founders Agreement, 1996. Inside, a clause highlighted in yellow. If any majority shareholder denies bereavement leave to a founder or their descendant, voting control transfers to the minority founder pending ethics review. Dad had rewritten the clause after his second stroke. A final act of quiet defiance. He hadn't given up, he'd been protecting me all along. By noon, I sat across from Gerald Baker, a senior corporate attorney. He reviewed the clause and said, "If this holds, you can freeze the board with one notice." I signed the papers. He filed the motion. That evening, I emailed Vera. Per Clause 8.2 of the Founders Agreement, I hereby freeze all pending executive actions. No greeting. No sign-off. Just facts. Later that night, I opened Dad's journal. He had written, "They see you as small because you never needed to scream. The quiet choice is often the loudest power." The next morning, I arrived early at Wilder Tower. The quarterly board meeting was set for 9 a.m. I rode the elevator alone, hearing Dad's voice in my head. Quiet choices. Loud power. People glanced at me, then quickly looked away, as if grief were something they could catch. Inside the glass-walled conference room, Vera sat at the head like a monarch. Her hands pressed against her tablet, knuckles white. Dean, seated 2 chairs down, stared blankly at a water bottle label like it might solve everything he was too afraid to say. The room reeked of citrus cleaner and silent allegiances. I took the nearest seat by the window without waiting for permission. Vera looked at me briefly. No hello. Let's begin, she said, her voice as polished and cold as chrome. Slides flickered across the screen. She rattled off updates on margins, user growth, her favorite phrase, aggressive expansion. She'd just moved to the next chart when the door opened. Thomas Reed, our lead counsel, walked in holding an envelope with the company seal. He handed it to her silently. Vera opened it, scanned a single sheet. Tension flickered through her shoulders. Reed cleared his throat. As per legal directive, voting rights for executive actions are now suspended under Clause 8.2, signed by founding shareholder Kaylin Wilder Morgan. A hush fell. Someone whispered, "What?" as if the word alone could fix it. Vera forced a smile that didn't reach her eyes. This is symbolic, nothing more. But her fingers drummed a nervous rhythm on the table. Elliot, a newer board member, glanced at me. Wait, she's still a founder? I met his eyes. Apparently symbolic founders still sign binding documents. I slid a folder across the table. Its label read Clause 8.2, revised and notarized. The gold seal gleamed. I remembered nursing a newborn during my first leave years ago, scanning the annual report and realizing my name was missing. When I asked, Vera had laughed it off. Legal trimmed the list for readability. Nothing personal. Soon after, my title was quietly changed to advisor, a word that sounded respectful until you realized it stripped your vote. They didn't fire me. They made me invisible. Now that invisibility was cracking. Vera's voice wavered. This hurts all of us, especially investors. I opened a second folder, an audit request. I asked for 3 days to bury my father. You chose quarterly earnings instead. I'm choosing not to disappear. Dean finally looked up. His voice shook. You can't be serious. As serious as the clause you ignored, I replied, soft enough that others leaned in. You once told me family didn't matter here unless it stayed useful. Well, I'm useful. And I'm an owner. Elliot scribbled notes. 2 directors exchanged uneasy glances. Thomas Reed remained silent by the door. Vera exhaled. This will stall the acquisition. Stock might drop. Then maybe the stock needs to learn respect, I said. Meeting adjourned. I stood. Chairs scraped behind me as others hesitated, unsure whom to follow. Dean half rose, caught between blood and allegiance. I left without waiting. My reflection in the glass outside looked different, angry, yes, but grounded. Steady. Behind the closed doors, voices rose, legal questions, panic. I ignored it. My phone buzzed. HR confirmation, we received your audit materials. Please confirm. I slipped it into my bag. Waiting for the elevator, I saw Vera through frosted glass. Her calm exterior cracked. Jaw clenched. That was the first fracture. I wasn't stopping there. The elevator was slow, so I took the stairs. On the way down, I passed a cracked maintenance door. Joan Tran stood inside, phone to her ear, sneakers tapping. She hung up when she saw me. Conference room C is free for 20 minutes, she whispered. Calendar shows HVAC check. We cut through the back hallway, stale coffee and toner in the air. Inside, Joan opened her laptop. Spreadsheets lit the screen, shell allocations 2016 to 2022. You pulled this without tripping alarms? I asked. She shrugged. Your dad's admin token still works. They hid the account under an equipment lease file. Rookie mistake. Show me the worst. She highlighted 3 lines. 1. $2.6 million in first-class flights to Florence, St. Bart's, Jackson Hole. 2. 3. $7.8 million in consulting fees to Vera's cousin, a man who once asked me if servers ran on regular gas. 4. 5. Handbag purchases filed under team development. 6. I kept my anger calm. Cold. Deliberate. Download everything. Jones slid me a secure drive. While it copied, I remembered an email from Dad, sent at 3:07 a.m. The subject, just in case. The attachment had been password protected, with the year I was born. Inside, the clause. The equity rights. The safety net he'd left me. I hadn't realized its power until Vera had tossed my envelope aside like trash. Transfer complete, Jones said. She clicked another folder, personnel flags. One line near the bottom made me freeze. Bereavement leave, denied. Reason, insubordination. They'd flagged my grief as misconduct. Joan handed me a red pen. I circled the sentence slowly. No tears came. Seeing it written so plainly transformed my grief into precision. We could go straight to a forensic referral, Joan said. Not yet, I replied. Let the system eat itself first. I compressed the worst files into a single PDF, stripped metadata, renamed it ethics_report_alpha, and uploaded it through the company's anonymous hotline. A system we'd installed after a workshop I once led. Joan asked, ready to pull the pin? I'm not pulling anything, I said. I'm just letting gravity work. I clicked submit. We left separately. I sent HR a memo confirming the audit submission. Neutral, clinical, unmissable. Before shutting down, I opened Dad's journal. On one page he'd taped a grocery receipt, underlined with his handwriting, the smallest slip can sink the largest ship. I pressed my fingers to the words, steady again. My phone buzzed. An automated ethics reply, thank you for helping foster integrity. I nearly laughed. Integrity had finally arrived at Wilder Tech, wearing handcuffs. That morning, while sipping coffee at my kitchen counter, the news ticker ran, prominent tech firm under internal ethics review. My family's name paired with ethics. Daylight justice. I checked my dashboard. The report had triggered escalation at 2:07 a.m., flagged level red by 3:52. At HQ, panic had set in. A friend from HR texted, people are whispering your name like it's classified. Then, Vera's fuming. Demanding to know who leaked it. I dressed, drove in. The lobby buzzed. A young dev showed headlines to a coworker. Our eyes met. He straightened, unsure how to react. I nodded and walked on. Upstairs, the boardroom corridor was chaos. Unauthorized equity flows. Media wants a comment. Who approved those travel reimbursements? Vera's voice, find out who planted this fiction. Fiction. A convenient lie when facts bite back. I bypassed the crowd and entered compliance. Inside, Clara looked relieved. The board wants an emergency meeting at 10. We froze the travel fund. Good, I said. Keep digging. That consultant? Vera's cousin. Her brows lifted. That explains the Cayman account. At 9:40, my phone buzzed, audit status escalated. I watched Vera pacing behind the glass, rattled. Dean trailed her. Carlson, the external attorney, arrived with binders. Cameras flashed outside. The story was growing legs. At 10 o'clock, the board met. I took a middle seat, visible, unignorable. Carlson clicked a slide, bereavement leave denied. Insubordination flag. The words lit up across Vera's blazer like a scar. Clara read aloud. Employee requested 3 days to bury her father. Request denied. Reason, insubordination. Silence. The kind that seals fate. An elder director murmured, "Is this how we treat our founding family?" Another whispered, "We could lose investors." Vera tried to pivot. It was HR procedure. Bad timing. Carlson raised an eyebrow. $7.8 million in phantom bonuses is also bad timing. He turned a page, the financial discrepancies louder than any confrontation. I didn't gloat, just waited in silence while Vera fidgeted, clutching her stylus like it could save her. When the meeting ended, all questionable accounts, including one tied to her cousin, were frozen. As I left, my phone rang. It was Walter Finch. "Check your inbox," he said. "Your father planned for this." Back home, I opened the document. It was a stock reallocation, signed by Dad 16 months prior. If any family member acted unethically, full voting control would shift from Vera's trust to mine. His signature was strong, the seal sharp. The transfer wasn't theft, it was reclamation. The timing made it feel even heavier. 3 months before hospice, he'd set this in motion. I remembered our last dinner out. He'd barely touched his food, then held my hand and said, "I've seen power hollow people out. So I put yours where they wouldn't look." I hadn't understood then. Now I did. I called Harper Grant, the trust administrator. "I'm invoking Clause 7C, I said. He didn't hesitate. "We've been expecting your call." By morning, the notarized transfer was official. No fanfare, just a quiet stamp. At Wilder Tower, chaos stirred. Messages lit up with questions about Vera's status. I arrived early, my employee badge already revoked. The receptionist handed me a visitor badge with trembling fingers. On the top floor, directors gathered. Vera tried to start the meeting, but was quickly questioned about my denied bereavement leave. She called it immaterial. That didn't sit well. I stepped forward and placed the transfer document on the table. Vera's face went pale. "You forged this," she accused. Harper stood. "I witnessed both signatures. The document is valid." I stayed composed. "You denied me 3 days to bury our father." That triggered the clause. One director whispered, "Never saw this in a governance class." Another acknowledged me as the new controlling stakeholder. Vera protested. "We have a pending acquisition. This jeopardizes everything." I replied, "Stability left when respect did." A vote to acknowledge my control was scheduled for next week, a formality now. As the meeting ended, Dean tried to speak. "Not now," I said. "Later, when the fire's out." Vera lingered. She tried to reclaim the room by sheer posture. I told her to sit. This time, I would run the meeting. She obeyed. Outside, storm clouds loomed. I tapped my pen, Dad's old signal for order, and said, "Let's begin." I distributed the transfer documents. Silence settled as everyone read. No one objected. Vera tried to regain ground. "This doesn't change operational authority." "It doesn't," I agreed. "That's why we're reviewing how it's been used." I projected 3 exhibits, my denied leave, chat logs mocking me, and Dad's amendment. The room gasped. "I didn't leave," I said. "I was pushed." Then erased. A senior VP admitted, "Your father warned us. We failed him." I nodded. This wasn't revenge, it was restoration. Then I dropped the forensic audit, $11.5 million routed to the COO's relatives. Verified. Immediate suspension was mandatory. The board voted, 14 in favor, 2 abstentions, none opposed. Vera stood. You can't erase me. I'm not erasing anyone. I'm restoring trust. Security arrived. Vera's panic surfaced. She was escorted out, her power gone. Later, I passed her office. Movers were already packing up. Her signature grapefruit diffuser still lingered. I saw a framed photo of her and Dad. I turned it face down. You used him, I whispered. And now it's over. Suddenly, my old office phone rang, disconnected months ago. A voice warned, she altered numbers in the Norland deal. They'll try to pin it on you. Vera had already filed a lawsuit, wrongful termination, contesting the trust. I thanked the caller and hung up. Let them come. My legal team was ready. By noon, headlines were everywhere: leadership shakeup, family feud, share drops. That afternoon, I met Walter Finch. He handed me an envelope from Dad, to be delivered if the trust was challenged. Inside, a note in Dad's handwriting. Fight smart. Fight with dignity. You carry the story forward. Attached was a penalty clause: if any heir contested the trust in bad faith, they forfeited their remaining shares. We would counterfile, breach of duty, hostile workplace, and that penalty clause. That evening, I sent a message to all employees: grief is not a weakness to exploit. I will protect this legacy. The message went viral, even CNBC called it see-through leadership. During prep, another audit revealed a $2.4 million fee funneled to Vera's brother and roommate. Evidence was sloppy. Another emergency board session followed. The vote, criminal referral, unanimous. As if on cue, a process server arrived. Ms. Wilder-Reed? Cameras caught Vera's frozen expression. She blamed everyone: HR, accounting, sabotage, but no one listened. That night, I sat alone in the executive suite. Dad's fountain pen lay beside audit papers. The silence didn't feel like absence, it felt like presence. Then, a knock. It was Mom, hair damp from rain. She didn't need to say anything. We both knew the storm had passed, or at least, was finally in my hands to weather. She arrived unexpectedly, holding a cedar box I'd never seen before. Her eyes were calm but carried urgency. We need to talk about your father, she said gently, and something he never told you. She set the box down on the conference table. Raindrops clung to its surface as the room's lights dimmed for the evening, leaving only the glow of my desk lamp and our reflections in the window. She opened the lid carefully. Inside were cassette tapes labeled in Dad's handwriting, old Polaroids from the company's earliest days, and spiral notebooks I hadn't seen since high school. He recorded everything, she said softly: board meetings, investor calls, mostly to preserve history. But the notebooks, she explained, contained his private thoughts, especially from the time the board pressured him to sideline me. Vera had led that charge. I flipped through one of the journals. In his handwriting, I found a line that hit deep: almost let them convince me the company needed one less Wilder. Heard Kaylin comforting a rattled intern at 1 a.m. She is the heart of this place. Decision reversed. Mom touched a tape marked May 3rd. That night, she said, he'd asked whether I was happy. When she told him I'd stayed late helping a junior engineer troubleshoot code, he knew where real loyalty lay. I felt something in me ease. He hadn't carried all that alone. Not completely. Then she handed me a sealed envelope, court-stamped. The final hearing is Friday, she said. There's one last clause. At the courthouse, the judge read Dad's final amendment: if I ever chose to leave the company, I would still retain ownership of a single asset, the 5-acre lot where his first warehouse once stood, now valued at over $12 million. The message was clear: I had the right to define value for myself. That same day, I visited the neglected lot. The sun reflected off the rusted remains of the old building. Birds called from the trees. I walked the perimeter slowly, gravel crunching beneath my feet, and felt a surprising peace. By afternoon, I was on the phone with a landscape architect. Not another tech complex, I told him. I want a public green space, for anyone who's never had a quiet place to breathe. The city approved the permits quickly. They liked the idea of beauty without a price tag. In a few months, walking paths curved through native magnolias, shaded benches invited rest, and a low stone wall surrounded a bronze plaque. For the builders. For the forgotten. For the kind-hearted. In memory of James Wilder. And the daughter he finally saw. News cameras covering Vera's criminal charges also captured the ribbon cutting for the garden, a stark contrast. She'd been indicted for fraud and conspiracy, banned from serving on any corporate board. She sent 2 emails, one defensive, the other pleading. I didn't open either. Sometimes silence is the clearest response. On a cool October Saturday, I brought Evan, my 8-year-old, to the cemetery. Wind scattered leaves along the path as he carefully carried a shoebox with a hand-painted model of the garden. He crouched beside the headstone and gently arranged the tiny trees. Grandpa would have liked it, he said with a shy smile. I traced my father's name engraved in the stone, its surface cold but comforting. He does like it, I replied, looking to the horizon where the tallest oak tree from the garden stood proud. And I think, I added quietly, he's finally at peace. Maybe we both are. Evan took my hand. We stood there in quiet, watching the clouds drift. Life moved on. There were shareholder meetings, product launches, and PTA bake sales. But something had shifted. The heaviness I'd carried for years had lifted, replaced by a quiet strength. And I realized, the most valuable thing I'd reclaimed wasn't stock or land. It was my own self-worth. Sometimes, the people who dismiss you the most are the ones most afraid of your quiet strength. And sometimes, the greatest victory isn't what you recover, but what you never let them take. Have you ever walked away from something, only to find everything waiting for you on the other side?